Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my favorite time of the week. It is Friday with the family on Orange Friday. I'm your host, Julia Bimbrook. Huge thank you to the Alumni Association for having me again, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy today's program. But before we start, I do want to offer a huge congratulations to President Hargis and the first Cowgirl, Ann Hargis. Burns announced his retirement today after 13 years leading this university, and I'll read off a few of his accomplishments real fast before we get started. His presidency has been marked by record-setting fundraising, enrollment growth, new and enhanced facilities, and growing national reputation for academic and research advances. But I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say the thing that stands out the most about the Hargises is just how they have been such a welcoming presence on the OSU community. So a huge congratulations to them. And like Vern said today in his announcement, the best is yet to come for the Hargises, for OSU, for everyone. So we love them. And now we'll get started with our programming. Today we have two very special guests, the current Pistol Pete and his father. So we have a father-son duo here, and I believe you guys are the third duo to do this. We have had Rick Dillard and Derek Dillard, and then Preston Whitlaw and Mark Whitlaw as well. So if you guys just want to start, Parker, I'll start it off with you. What did it mean to find out that you were going to follow in your dad's footsteps on this?
I've been looking forward to this day a long time. Growing up, I was always with my dad, whether it be, football games, alumni stuff that he went to doing Pistol Pete. I rode on the float growing up at homecoming. I was around all the Petes all the time. And, I basically did everything with them. And I was just looking forward to this day that I could represent Oklahoma State. But it means a lot. I love it. I love my job.
Yeah, and Rick, what about you? When you heard that Parker was going to get to do this, what was that feeling like?
Oh, when he called me and said, I did it, I made it, I was ecstatic. It was it's a hard job to get the honor to be named Pistol Pete. It took 3 interviews. It took 3 years for him to be able to actually become Pete. So each time you wait by the phone and hope it's good news. And this year it was great news.
Okay, so take me back to your time as Pete. What made you want to do this in the first place?
I had a interaction with Pistol Pete, kind of like Parker did at a young age. I think I was around 8, 9, 10 years old, and there was I was at a wrestling duel, and a friend of mine and I went over to Pete and I said, "Hey, can I get your autograph?" He gave me his autograph, and I said, "Can I put the head on?" And he said, "Well, it's too heavy for you, but I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll hold it up and then I'll lower it down over your shoulders." And as he lowered that head down over my shoulders, the first thing that kind of gets you is the aroma that's inside of the head. And then I could seeing out of those 2 eyes, and I never forgot that. And so once I never really thought, okay, I want to be Pistol Pete. That wasn't a lifelong dream, kind of like it was for Parker, but it was something that inspired me once I got to campus and I started watching guys. I wanted to be on the football field or on the wrestling mat, and I wasn't talented enough to do that. So how else could I be involved? Started watching Pete, and I remembered that interaction. And Tom Bennett was the Pistol Pete at that time, and so that changed my life. It really did, because Pete has changed my life, and all my closest friends are Pistol Petes. My business is a lot of that has come from Pistol Pete, that interaction. So it was a phenomenal opportunity, and I owe Pete pretty much everything.
And I do want to remind people as you're listening, you can submit questions, and you can do that using the Ask a Question button here in the webinar platform, or you can comment on Facebook, and we'll be getting some of those in as well as we go. So now, Parker, you're Pete at a very interesting time. I'm sure you had this idea of what it was going to look like watching your dad. What has been different this year in the middle of a pandemic?
So our coach, Becky Jackson, she is the pom coach, and she's in charge of Pistol Pete. And I remember, I tried out 3 times. Every time she will tell you, this is the hardest job at Oklahoma State. You will be doing something every single day. You're going to do 700 appearances a year. And, that's what I signed up for. And COVID hit. And I think I can count how many times, I've been Pete since August 12th. I think I've done 5 or 6 appearances since then. So it's very, very relaxed. I've not been able to, have that same experience as past guys, kind of on a little shortcut. But it has been different, for example, football games, usually Pete's down on the field, walking around, really just getting to do whatever he wants and not interfering with the game. And right now they put us up on the concourse right below the big screen, and we have a little square cutout with tape, and we're not allowed to leave our square. So you kind of have to get creative. What we're going to do, we can't just stand up there all day long. So I was like, Becky, I'm shooting this shotgun off as much as I can this year, because I don't know what else to do. There's not really like a handbook for Pete. You just kind of go out there and you feel it out and you get it done. But it's been so fun. I've met tons and tons of people just so far. And I'm really having a great time. Done a couple of weddings now, a couple video virtual weddings as well. But I'm just happy to do whatever I can. I'm really looking forward to when I can strap it on and get it for real.
So step me through that. What does a virtual wedding look like as Pistol Pete?
So have you seen that movie? What is it called? It's a Christmas movie, and he goes up to the girl's her apartment, and there's a guy in there with her. He knocks on the door, and he starts playing Christmas carols to distract the guy. The girl comes, so he doesn't talk at all. He just has big signs.
Yes.
So it's like, you're perfect to me, or what, I forget what it says, but me and my partner Michael Albright, we made one for a wedding, and it was so funny. I think his name was David or something. It was like, we said, David, your days of talking to girls like this are done. And then the next one was a bunch of girls in bikinis. It was hilarious. But no, we've had some fun with it. We've made the most of it. It's been a ton of fun.
And Rick, what about creative times when you were Pete? I know you didn't have to deal with a pandemic, but what were some of your favorite moments that you guys got creative with?
Well, I came from a farming ranching background, so I incorporated the rope. I did rope tricks. I had a bull whip that I used and did some tricks with a bull whip. I had other items that I would bring out. I had stuffed dolls that that mimicked what OU used to have, Top Dog. It would always get destroyed at games. I had a tiger this was back in the Big 8, so we had the Missouri Tigers. Basketball, I had full length, life-size posters of attractive young ladies that I would stand behind the goal when they were shooting free throws, and one of the things that you probably can't get away with today, but it was a little bit different time back then. So it's just basically you doing whatever you could do to be creative. I did, I had the eye chart, and I did the blind man, and I would go play with the refs and basically do a short eye test on them to make sure that their eyes were good after that terrible call. So it was just trying to think of anything out of the box that you could do.
And the brotherhood that is Pistol Pete, I mean, you guys have the family connection, but outside of that, you guys are really close. What is it that connects everybody so well?
There's only 92 people that have ever worn that head. There's a lot of young men that have tried out. There's been young ladies that have tried out. But there's 92 folks that have worn that head. And that's a very, very small fraternity of individuals. And it's something that we take with pride. We're of kindred spirits, really. I mean, so many of us are a lot alike. We kind of came out of the same mold. But the best thing about Pete is that we have other guys that didn't maybe come out of that guy that was always looking for attention and starving attention and wanting to be in the middle of the show, like some of us. But some of those guys were the best Pete's ever. So it's just it's an incredible fraternity, and we're all true to the brand. I mean, we ride the brand, and that's what we say: be true to the brand.
And then, Rick, if you'll step me through, and then I want Parker's perspective on this. I think his was probably very different. What does the tryout process normally look like? And then we'll talk about this year as well.
Tryout, I was on the judging committee for many, many, many years. And the tryout it's much like one of the largest, most important positions on campus. You come in, you have an interview, there's lots of questions. You know, we deal with grades, we deal with your thought ideas on making sure that you can think on your feet, your speaking ability. If you're in an environment, somebody wants you to be able to, hey, there's Pistol Pete. Parker, would you come up and have say a few words to us? So you can stand up, be professional, and give a speech about the university and about what it's like to be Pistol Pete and answer questions in a professional manner. And then there's a time of putting the head on. And then we give situational questions of, hey, you know, OU scores, what are you going to do? Oh, they fumbled the ball. Now what are you going to do? Okay, OSU scores. How's that going to? Little girl wants to see you, and oh, she thinks Pete's the greatest thing until you get up to her, and now you're 10 feet tall, and she's scared to death. What are you going to do? So it's kind of a combination of most interviews of SGA presidents and a lot of important positions for students on campus, incorporating in putting this big giant head on, and then being able to take the theatrics of what a cowboy looks like and what Frank Eaton is and tie those together. It's a fine line, and there's a lot of people that think they can do it. There's only 92 that's ever done it.
And then, so what was it like this year? How similar was it to what your dad just explained?
It was very, very similar. You know, this was my third tryout. So I had two that are normal. And normally they run about 4 to 5 hours because they keep everybody in there, take them out to Gallagher, and then we do the tryout in the O Club room. So one by one, I think it's about a 30-minute long interview, putting the head on, all that kind of stuff. But when you're not doing it, and even after you get done, you go sit in Gallagher. So this year, what we did was, I think it was 30 or 45-minute increments. Becky would call us, say, hey, we did a schedule. Mine was like 3 o'clock. The next person's at 3:30, 4, 4:30. So, and you just showed up and then you left. So after my interview, they were like, okay, you'll be getting an email with the results. And I think I chewed off all of my fingernails on my hand. I was so nervous getting the results. I wanted to know right now, but it was good. It was very, very exciting. One of the best days ever for me.
Who was your first phone call when you got it?
It was my dad. Yeah, it had to be. Yeah, he was screaming, jumping up and down. Went outside and hung the Pistol Pete flag up in the front yard. It was good. I was very excited. I had a bunch of buddies around me, so we celebrated. It was a good time.
Yeah, and so when you were little, you talked about kind of being around it all the time. Was there a moment that you were like, I want to do that when I go to college?
Yeah, there was one specific moment. So I went to a lot of, before I tried out, in college, it wasn't my first tryout. I went with my dad to a lot of the tryouts when he judged, and I was a prop, being the little kid. So, when I was like 6 years old, I went to the tryouts, and I remember one time we went, and it was right before they unveiled the Pistol Pete statue there in Gallagher, the big copper one or whatever it is. And the artist was still there, Sandra Van Zant. So we do we go through the whole interview. We choose the new Pete's for the year, and Sandra Van Zant was there, and she kind of took me by the hand and took me away from my dad. And I was a little 6-year-old, I was running around, and we went down to the statue that no one had seen yet. And she went up and she put the mold was still drying at this time. It wasn't hard, and she put my fingerprints on the gun when I was 6 years old. So my fingerprints are actually in the gun handle of the statue there at Gallagher Iba. So it was pretty crazy now, 15 years later, we're sitting here and I'm the Pistol Pete. my fingerprints are in the gun.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'll have to look closely for that next time I'm in Stillwater. That's very cool. Well, we have some viewer questions coming in, so I'll start to get to those. But first of all, we got a shout out from Shelly Sherrod, who says that Rick actually served as Pete at her wedding. Do you remember that one, Rick?
That was yes, that was a few days ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I did a lot of weddings, but I do remember doing Shelly Sherrod's wedding.
Very cool. Well, that's fun. And it's cool that it still has this impact as well. So somebody sent in, how do you deal with the fame that comes from being Pistol Pete?
So I know exactly who this is. It's my partner, Michael Albright. And he's been telling me this whole week, I'm going to write in some stuff for you. Yeah, that's Michael. I'm just going to, how do you deal with the fame, Michael? How do you? No, it's fun. It is so much fun. I love it all. I'm getting to meet so many new people. They'll come up. Oh, aren't you Pistol Pete? It's a great time. I'm always down to talk to anybody. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, what can we expect? This comes from an OSU fan. What can we expect as far as interacting with Pete at events this year?
So we're open. The lines are open. All you have to do is submit requests. It's very, very slow right now. Whether, weddings, we've done a couple funerals. Michael went to 2 past couple weeks. Really anything, we're able to take pictures, show up to your wedding. With the COVID guidelines, we just maintain that. But other than that, we're good to go.
And then I'll send this one to Rick first and then to Parker. What was the most impactful event that you were a part of as Pistol Pete?
The most memorable event or moment, I'll put it that way, there's a million of them. You got a million stories to tell, but this one was the most memorable. And it was in the winter of 1985. It was during basketball season, and I was back then it was still Gallagher Hall. So I'm down at the southeast corner of the court, and there was a little boy that was up on the second level, and he had been screaming the entire first half, Pistol Pete, Pistol Pete, Pistol Pete. And I would wave to him and I'd shoot the gun and I'd do a rope trick, but he was still up there and he couldn't come down. So finally I kept telling him I was pointing, come downstairs. So at halftime, this little boy comes downstairs with his parents, but they came down at the north end of Gallagher. And he came in, for some reason, he was at the northwest corner of Gallagher on the court, and I'm at the southeast corner. And things were a little bit different at halftime back then. We didn't have all the stuff going on at halftime. The cheerleaders would do some stuff and that kind, but the court would be open a lot. Well, this little boy starts running from the northwest corner of the court at a full dead sprint. And I see him coming and I'm making a big deal about it. And I see as he's getting closer, this little boy isn't slowing down. Matter of fact, he's gaining speed. And I'm thinking, oh, great. So I think, all right, well, I'll get down on his level, down on my knees, and maybe he'll slow down. He just speeds up. He hits me going full speed. And the little boy's probably 6, 7 years old. And so I made a big, extravagant, like it was a big collision, and I fell back on my back. And when I did, this little boy just grabs me and starts hugging me. And I'm laying on the court and I'm looking up at the lights in Gallagher, and this little boy isn't letting go. I mean, he is holding on for dear life. I mean, he just is so ecstatic that he gets to see Pistol Pete. And it brought me back to when that interaction I had with Tom Bennett. as a young boy. And it was a real touching moment. And it made me realize how impactful a college student dressed up like a cowboy can be to a young mind. So that's the most memorable moment. My most memorable experience was I was Pistol Pete at the infamous Ice Bowl in 1985, which goes down in history as the craziest weather day in Oklahoma and the craziest football game. So those are the two most memorable and probably the strangest thing that ever happened as far as a football game. It was cold. I mean, there was probably 2 inches of ice on the field. It was people sledding around. It was the craziest thing ever. The fortunate thing is that we played Iowa State the week before that, and it was as cold in Iowa State, just without ice and snow, as it was at the Ice Bowl. And the mascot there shared with me what to put on my feet to keep me warm, because I was asking, how are you able to even move around in this weather? And that's his secret, which I'll share with those offline. What kept me from freezing to death. Matter of fact, I didn't even put my duster on until the fourth quarter, and I had 8 9-inch icicles hanging off the brim of Pete's hat. It was the craziest night ever, and we almost won, but almost.
We'll leave that part out of the story.
Yeah, against the Gooners. So anyway.
Wow. So you survived the cold. Why did you wait so long to put the duster on?
Because I was sweating. I was moving around so much to stay warm that I actually was sweating, and inside the head I couldn't see because the sweat in the steam was accumulating inside the head, and I'm kind of staggering around like a drunk man. But I was warm. All the cheerleaders in the Palms, you guys all went and got in the ambulance that used to be parked down at the west end zone. It was those of us that are in my age bracket. They can account for the Ice Bowl. There were people frozen to the bleachers. They were pouring hot chocolate on people trying to get them loose. It was a comedy of errors.
Wow. And Parker, you haven't had anything that cold yet, but what would you say is your most memorable or impactful moment as Pete?
So I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of experiences yet. I do have one at the last home game. So Michael and I, we switch off every quarter. The first game I did first and third, and then the second one I did second and fourth. So after the West Virginia game, we have, Julie, you probably know this, the Petes have a little room there on the east side there in Gallagher-Iba where the tunnels, where that tunnel is, where the opposite team comes out. And it's probably 8 foot by 8 foot. I mean, it's a little concrete box is what it is. So one of the walls of this concrete box is an elevator, and that elevator connects all the way to the top of Gallagher-Iba. So we get done with the game, and Michael and I, I'm coming back in, messing with people. I get back into in our box. I take the head off, and I just sit down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating. I mean, my shirt's soaked. It was so hot, and I start taking everything off. I start taking my shirt off. And I'm facing this way. All I see is the elevator's doors open, and no one's supposed to come down here. This is our spot. No one comes down here. I'm taking my shirt off, and I still got all the Pistol Pete gear on besides the head. And the elevator's doors open, and it's a family and a little 4-year-old girl. And she looks at me, and I look at her. We make eye contact, and she. Just the look on her face, she probably has nightmares. She's like, who the heck? What are you doing? But I just started dying laughing. And the dad was like, oh, it looks like we're on the wrong spot. Yeah, go up one more. So if you live, there are people in the suites. They went to G instead of 1. So if you're in the suites of Gallagher-Iba, don't go to G. You always, number 1 is where you're looking to go. But I bet I traumatized that little girl.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, I don't know if you saw, you got a shout out while you were chatting. Ben Dyke wants to tell you that you are a great guy and a great friend.
Yeah. I love Ben Dykes.
Let's see here. Now, Rick, I know Parker's talking about how they get to trade off at quarters. They get a little rest. They get a break. That didn't used to be the deal, did it?
No, no, back then we had Pete and then we had an alternate. And so David Treese was the first year I tried out, David Treese was Pete and I was the alternate. And then the second year I was Pete and Scott Petty was my alternate. After my year as Pete, there's a picture of David Treese and I, who also I'll give a shout out to Big Dave Treese. As you were talking about the fraternity and the closeness of the Petes, we all wear a little rubber band that says Treese Strong number 38. Shout out to my big friend Dave Treese, who is kicking cancer's tail. But anyway, Dave was Pete, and so we would do the entire game, and then the alternate would get to do a game, whichever game that they got worked out. So it was a little bit different back then.
And Parker, are you the white bandana or the orange bandana? How can people?
Orange.
You're yep. Orange. Okay. Okay. And then Suzanne wants to know, how far in advance can you request Pistol Pete? Like if you're playing in an event really far out, how far in advance can you do that?
I believe a month, maybe a month. I think. I think it's on the website when to do it. There at Oklahoma State, submit for Pistol Pete. But yeah, I think it's on the website, but I believe it's a month. I believe.
Okay, and as we're nearing the end here, what are your predictions for the game tomorrow? We'll start with you first, Rick. What's going to happen?
I think it's Iowa State's always tough. I think we haven't played in 3 weeks and we're ready to play football. So I'm going to go Oklahoma State 42, Iowa State 38. I think it's going to be a tough game.
All right, Parker, how about you?
I'm saying Oklahoma State 31, Iowa State 24. I think OSU covers. I think Spencer's going to have a big game. Our defense is going to play well. I think 31-24 is what I'm saying.
All right, hoping for that win. So as our final question, Rick, why don't you leave us with some advice for Parker? What do you hope he gets out of this next year and this experience?
To take every time you get to put that head on, every time you lower that head over your shoulders, remember that 6-year-old little boy, because that one thing will impact the performance and what you're going to exhibit to the OSU family. Is always remember that 6-year-old little boy or little girl. It's this, and to take every day, because it happens so quickly. You'll remember your first appearance and you always remember your last appearance, and you remember a few highlights in between, but just enjoy the journey. It's a ride that you'll ride for the rest of your life. If you think being Pete, it's just for this year and next year or however long you're Pete, this is something that once you're in the Pete fraternity, it's for life. Frank Eaton will impact your life for the rest of your life, because people will say, hey, Parker, you were Pistol. This was Parker Wilson. He was Pistol Pete at OSU. The doors, it's amazing the doors that one little head can open.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I know that Pistol Pete is such an emblem for this university, and you both are representing and have represented it so very well. So thank you for your time and for sharing those memories with us. I will say before we leave, first of all, Parker mentioned her numerous times. Big shout out to Becky Jackson, who takes care of the Pete's right now, as well as round of applause, as well as the Pom Squad. I danced on the Pom Squad, so I can agree with Parker firsthand. She is the best in the business. And thank you guys for joining us. We will be back with another Friday with the family on November 6th. So mark your calendars. We have a little bit of a break before our next one. We'll be recapping the Pokespalooza student events with Calissa Ratzliff, and looking forward to the centennial edition of America's Greatest Homecoming, which will now take place in 2021. You can register now to watch touch at orangeconnection.org/webinars, where you can also view our previous broadcast along with other educational videos. Orange Friday at Iron Monk in Stillwater returns in just 1 hour. We're almost there. Cowboys 21 and older can show your active Alumni Association membership card to receive a free brew between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock tonight. So stop by if you're in Stillwater. And then speaking of membership, we have one more plug for you. Now is a great time to log on to your new online profile at orangeconnection.org to claim your life membership credit and secure your member benefits for life. Membership also helps the Alumni Association connect Cowboys virtually through programming like Fridays with the Family. Thank you guys again for joining us. As always, stay safe and go Folks.
Go Folks.